Well, I documented my whole kingdom spouse journey from the time that I got the word from the Lord that said, you are getting married soon, all of the confirmations, what it looked like, how I was feeling, all my interactions until we actually got together. And then I even documented a little bit after that. So I'm really glad that I have all of these. I have 14 confirmations that I experienced between March till June 18th. And so I went back through all of those voice recordings and I wrote down all of these confirmations that I received. This has been a really requested video. I'm sorry that it took a little longer, but to everybody that's wanted to know about this, this is what that is. So we're just gonna go ahead and get into it. So my first confirmation was, this kind of seems silly, but this is the way the Lord talks. Be able to listen to him in anything. And so what happened was, I was sleeping and I have a bunny who, now we have two bunnies, but at the time I just had Chessie, and he lived in a little nook in my bedroom. It really gave me any issues. And all of a sudden at night, he started rattling his cage. Like if I needed to get a sip of water or I needed to roll over, he would just, because bunnies don't sleep at night, they sleep during the day, but he would just like know I was awake and he would rattle his cage with his teeth. I mean, full on rattle it. And so I would like try to creep around him. I would try to, roll over real gently. He just started rattling the cage. And I'm like, what are you doing? This went on for a while. And so I didn't understand it. And then finally it went on so long that I realized that, Lord, you're trying to tell me something. Like I could just feel it in my spirit. Like he's trying to tell me something right now. So I asked him, I said, Lord, what is this? And all of a sudden I just knew in my spirit that I was going to have a family. And I had forgotten that initial word because it didn't happen, right? So I had put it out of my mind. I had moved forward. So I'm not thinking about this stuff. And so all of a sudden though, like I knew in my spirit, I'm going to have a family. And this is kind of what it looks like to have a baby. Like God's showing me, I knew the Lord was showing me that I was going to be woken up in the middle of the night to take care of, I was going to be awakened. Like I wasn't going to be able just to do whatever I wanted to anymore. And I knew that. And I thought, well, that's cool. Okay. Still didn't really think a whole lot of it. Well, then the YouTube video came up. So the one that said, you're getting married soon. It just came across the screen. I was just chilling and I never clicked on marriage stuff because I didn't want the algorithms just to send me marriage things, because in my heart, it was what I wanted. I had prayed about it. I had gotten really excited 9 months prior when I got the word, and then that excitement fizzled out when it was just not even happening. And then I kind of moved on from it and just honestly forgot about it. And so this comes up. I asked Lord, like, should I click on this? I prayed to the Lord and I said, Lord, speak to me really loud. And this is fun because my husband and I both went back through these recordings, and it's great because there's things I forgot that are in there, and it's wonderful. And then when that came on, it was reading my mail. I mean, it was that situation. And then in that moment, I was like, Lord, is it who you told me what it was before? And I could just feel it. And I just remember just laughing so hard and being like, okay. And I said, the first time that this didn't happen, it really hurt. I said, so I really need you to confirm this for me, like that this is what's happening here, because I don't want to pray into, declare and decree and do all these things over somebody that's not mine. Like I don't want, I only want what you want for me, Lord. So I really need you to confirm this, because if this is what it is that I think that it is, this is exciting, So then I watched another YouTube video that said, the Lord will give you the word first, and then that word will be confirmed by another person. And I didn't know that about prophecy. I just always kind of got my words from the Lord and just believed him, So the next morning, my friends come over that were helping me with my brother at the time. And they didn't know anything about this at all. And I didn't tell anybody at that point. And he's like, oh, I had this crazy dream about you last night. She's like, I had a dream that I was with Dalton's mom and we were out looking at houses and you were on a date. But she didn't say with who, but I knew who. But she didn't say it because it wasn't that I hadn't told anybody, but she also kind of knew that like he was kind of a sensitive subject, even though like we hadn't really ever talked about it. And so she just didn't say it, but I knew. I was like, it was him. So I knew that I had received my first formal confirmation in that. So then we go to Passover. Dalton's mom was ushering. Well, I didn't have all my elements. And I think I talked to her and I just told her, I said, hey, I don't have all the elements in my bag. You know, who do I talk to about, you know, making sure I have these? And then Dalton's mom came back to me and she said, did they give you your elements? And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't think so. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, if they didn't, I share. And I remember like not thinking anything of it at the time, but then when I left, I just started laughing and I thought, she shares, like she'll share her son. Okay. And I knew, and that seems like so little, even saying it out loud, it's like, that seems like, how was that a confirmation? It was. I mean, everything that I put in those voice memos, it was because those were the things that were encouraging me through that journey. Those were the things where God was speaking to me. It's just like, you have to listen, you know? And so when you know the voice of the Lord and you know how he works, it's like, I knew that like out of everybody that I could have talked to, like that she said that, like I just knew it was God confirming to me yet again. So we go to Resurrection Sunday, right? And so I went into the courts of heaven prior. And that was the first morning that I opened my book, I opened his book, and then I opened our book as a couple. And that was pretty powerful. I opened our books and then I prayed to the Lord for a sign because he was likely going to be at that church service, right? And I prayed for the Lord for a sign. And then I said, let him come close to me, Lord. Let him come closer to me than he ever has. Like, please, like throw your girl a bone, you know, like it's been a long season. And so when I get there, I was sitting closer to kind of where he sat usually ish, but more towards that far wall. Gets out in a way that he never does. So where he walks right past me, and I thought, that was weird. You know, like that's so weird. And it was just funny because like that was probably the closest he'd been to me in a long time. And again, these things are small, but this is what happens. So this is what, you know, getting with your, you know, kingdom spouse looks like. It's little nuggets, and you have to be able to discern and pick up on that and be like, okay, Lord, I see you, you know? So I go out to the lobby after service, and I don't even think for any amount of time that he'd actually still be in the lobby. I walk in there and there he is. And then there's our youngest. And I look down at her and I'm like, hello, child. You know, just like, hi. And then I walk past him and we kind of look at each other for a second. And then I go in, not even thinking he'd be there when I come out. I come out, there he is. And we look at each other, you know, and I look at him with my butt hurtness disdain. Just kidding. But, you know, I just look at him, kind of. And because I still am like, I don't know how to act, you know, because I don't want to do the wrong thing. I just look at him and he looks at me and it looked like he was trying to not smile. And then in the recording I put, maybe he was laughing at me. Maybe he thinks I'm funny, you know, so who knows what was going on in his head at the time. But it was definitely the closest we had been to that point. So I knew that God heard me, and I knew that that was only him that made this person completely do something different that they never do, especially when they're a creature of habit. He wasn't even sitting in the same spot that morning. His entire whole thing was completely different because I prayed. So I thought that was cool. So then I put on here, I felt like I was on his radar that day. Okay, so I prayed and I asked God, what do I do next? What's next, Lord? Because we still haven't spoken. The signs are coming. I'm getting the confirmations, but what next, Lord? And I said, what is my part in this? And then I see a YouTube video pop up that says, be silent. He will talk to you first. So, I mean, as soon as I asked this, that video popped up, and I could feel yet again in my spirit and discern that that was God responding to my question. Be silent, don't say anything, let him come to you. What that looks like, that even though I was getting these confirmations, there was still times of like weirdness and feeling a little deflated and feeling like, what is going on? And so I go to church that night, and it was really weird. Like, they were there, but like I felt awkward. I couldn't get into worship. And I just knew in that moment the enemy was just coming in like a flood. Like, I knew that the second that church service was over, they were going to drop their ties and they were going to be out the door. There wasn't going to be any opportunity for interaction. And so I remember I put in the voice memo that, that night kind of, it just was a little disheartening. And then I felt deflated, but I knew what God had said, and that was what I said. In that, after that day, I was just like, I know what you said, Lord, so I'm just trusting you in this. So then next, I have a dream, okay, and which is interesting because that night our rabbi had released that we were going to have dreams. And so he said, when you get home, put a notepad by your bed, because God's going to send you dreams, and you need to get up and you need to write these down. They're going to be important. And so I didn't do as instructed, but I did use my voice memo. And so I woke up at like 4:30 a.m. and I notated a dream that I had. And so in the dream, my best friend had a girlfriend and living with this girlfriend. There were 2 little girls at the house with them, and they were eating dinner, and they weren't really offering any to me. And so I knew that I needed to get the little girls home. And so I knew where one lived, but I didn't know where the other one lived. So I go to the children's home, and like, it's Christmas time, and I go to the children's home and I'm asking them, do you know where she lives? And they're like, oh no, we don't know where she lives. Where all of a sudden Dalton's there. And he's like, I'm going to come with you. I want to come with you. I can help you. And I was like, okay. So we go back to my friend's house. He's doing a ton of stuff to like help me there. Like, we're cleaning up trash. Like, we're getting like stuff from Christmas presents picked up. And so then at the very end, we're in the kitchen, and he holds out his arms and he gives me this big hug. And then in it, I like put in there, like, it felt so good. And he gives me this big hug, and he said, I'm tired. I'm going home to go to bed. And tomorrow I'm going on a diet. And I thought that was so funny, because we were listening to that now. And the things that God was showing me about him then is so him now. And it's kind of funny, because the way I talk about him in those voice memos, before ever really knowing him, before ever being with him, before ever being married to him, it's all exactly the same. Didn't get hit with a ton of bricks of, oh, well, you're not as this as I thought you would be. It was like, no, like, God was showing me him, and showing me, like, in just the little amounts that he revealed about him to me, like, I just knew in my heart who he was. And that's so crazy to me. We were really kind of taken back when we were listening to all of these. We call them the Christa Chronicles. Anyway. Okay. Alrighty. And then I had a dream. Okay, so I completely forgot about this until I was listening to it last night. So I had a dream that I was pregnant. And I think at one point I was having twins, and I was really, really excited about it. But there was like no father. Like, that was never in the dream. And so all of a sudden, like, Dalton is there, and he wants to take me to my doctor's appointments. And he was just really nice to me. It was like in my dreams, he was just really nice to me. And I remember it just like felt warm, like it just feeling that, like it just felt really, really good. So this is number 10. So I had asked God, I said, Lord, I really need some encouragement. Like, this is really difficult. Like, please give me a sign. And so we're in church, and there's this song out of Isaiah, and it's like, sing, O barren, you're going to have more kids than the woman with kids, and extend your tent pegs, and, spare no expense, and it's a song, and we were singing it, and I remember just being like so overcome with the presence of the Lord that I actually had to sit down, which is a very, very rare thing. I had to sit down and I just felt like God was hugging me. It was so tangible, it was so real, and it was just warm and fuzzy and everything wonderful. And I was so happy in that moment because I knew that that song was for me. But I just knew it was him. I knew he was encouraging me. I felt so loved in that moment. I felt held and I felt encouraged. Yeah, and so then at number 11, so finally he speaks to me. So I was working the immersion, and everybody comes in through security and we check their bags and we do all that stuff. And so he comes, he wasn't even on the list that day. And so I thought, well, I guess he's not coming. Well, he comes in like at the very last and plops his bag up right in front of me, and I check it and he says, "Hey, how are you guys doing today?" I'm like, "Doing fine." And that was like the first time we had spoke since I got the word that you're getting married soon. And even though that seems so small, which it is, for me it was huge because I knew what God was doing and I knew that that was a big step in the right direction. And now it's like he spoke first. That was like, to me, it was like when God said, be silent, and then he spoke first. It was like, and I was obedient to that, and I let that happen. I knew it was like a wall had come down. And so, again, it seems small, but you have to be able to hear the voice of the Lord in your situation through things. Like in any way he's going to speak to you, you have to be sensitive to his spirit and sensitive to his voice. So as little as that seems, it was a really big turning point. It was a really big breakthrough because it was like, okay, that silence has now been broken. And so then I ended up being in the bathroom with the girls, and it was kind of funny anyway. But I remember, though, I watched them on the screen go into the pool, because if you work anything like that, you go in last and after everybody's gone through. And so I was watching in the immersion room on the screen, and I see them go into the pool, and I put on my voice memo that I declared and decreed in that moment that that time next year I would be in the pool with them, and I was. So that's also very powerful, I feel like, in that, the things that I was declaring and decreeing and standing on, and those things happened. And it was interesting too, and this isn't in my notes, but it's something that I forgot and I remembered like just now. But there's like this little like pumpkin patch thing right by our house, and it's like on the main highway, but if you turn and go little ways, there's our house. And I remember thinking, like, I knew he lived around there, and so it was like in the fall, and I was driving, and I looked over and I thought, man, how fun would that be to like us to go there and like do that. And I remember like saying, okay, Lord, this time next year we're gonna be there. And I remember feeling the Lord's presence when I said it, and I knew we would, and we did. So so that was incredible. And then God gave me another word, and I had completely forgotten about this. That's why I just notated everything from this time, because I knew I'd want to look back and remember everything, because it's it's God's plan unfolding. Like, I wanted to always remember it. And so God gave me another word. It said, be patient with your future spouse. I believe that also came through YouTube. Whenever like it just came on, and like I just felt it, and I just knew like God was just saying, be patient with him. And I received it, and I said, okay, I'll be patient. And that was. I put in the voice memo, breakthrough on the husband front, and we laughed about that last night, so I wrote that at the top. Okay, we used to do these care groups, right? So we went to a care group, and when I walked in, the people that were in charge of ours, their grandkids were there. Now, side note, I had not been around any kids for like a really long time. Like, nobody I knew, because I wasn't really around anybody for a long time. Like, I was very much in a lot of seasons of just a lot of isolation and just really kind of doing my own thing. And I wasn't around babies. I wasn't around little kids. Like, it was something that I felt the enemy had a hold on. And like, that was not being released to me at all. And so when I walk into this care group, those people, they had their grandkids there. And the little girl just immediately like attached to me. She wanted to show me her iPad. She wanted to play games with me. She wanted to talk to me. And I'm just having the best time ever. And then there was a little baby there. And even he was like, like even he was like there. And I was able to play with him and like interact with him, which, I love kids, so it was really amazing, but it was also new and it was different, and I could feel that it was different. I was like, what is this? It was a atmosphere shift completely from what I was used to. And so I was very, very excited about it. And also at church, there was another little girl that would sit in front of me, and like I got on her radar. And then every time I would come to church, she would run and she would hug me. And I just loved it because it's like I was getting, to interact with, kids again. And there was just something very life-giving about that. So we are getting close now to like the barbecue. If you don't know about the barbecue, go back. So I was holding my friend's baby, and she walked away. She had to go do something. And like all of a sudden my friends go and talk to Dalton and his parents. Like I look over and pretty much my peeps in the church are over there. Normally I would never go there, and they didn't usually go there. And so I have this baby, and her mom went to go do something. So I just go over there where my friends are, and I just kind of quietly sit down in a chair. Well, the girls like love babies, love babies. So they are so excited to be able to like come near this little tiny baby. And they're just talking to me. They're telling me all their stuff, and they're talking about her. And like our oldest tells me, like, when I'm like you, I'm gonna have a baby. And I'm like, yeah, girl, I'll do it. And then he was talking to my friend. Dalton was talking to my friend. And my friend said that he kept seeing his eyes kind of dart down, like looking at me. And so everybody starts getting their stuff together. They start leaving. I'm still waiting on my friend to come get her baby, right? And so I just kind of get up, and everybody starts to walk away. Well, I can feel him kind of behind me, like just being there. And all of a sudden he like kind of walks by, and he goes, "Oh, cute baby." And he's like, I think he said, "I love babies," or something like that. And I was like, yeah, bye. And he's like, "Bye, have a good one." I was like, bye. And that was incredible, because I definitely felt like at that point there was walls that were being broken down, and you could just see it. You could feel it, because all of a sudden it just felt like the doors were starting to open. Like all of a sudden there was just an opening, and there was more communication, and it didn't feel as awkward as it had. It started to feel like this is going to be doable. You could just start to feel it and see it, even in the smallest ways. Okay, and so then I go shopping with a friend. She doesn't know anything about it. She knows I have a promise for marriage, because when people would ask me about it, I would just say, "I have a promise," and that's all I would say. Well, she said, "Oh, I do too." And she said, "I actually give everybody that has a promise for marriage this domino." And I had set it over here, and then I think I moved it, but I was like, okay. She goes, "And I'm gonna bring you one." And I said, alrighty then. And I said, in my mind, I prayed and I said, "Lord, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be," like, I thought it would have 2 sets of 4s, like 4 dots, but I knew it was gonna be 4s. And I said, "Lord, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be 4s," because he speaks to me in numbers, and 4 is it's the number for him and I, and which is open doors, so it's awesome. And I get the domino, and it's 4, just 4 dots, and there's 3 pink and there's 1 blue. And so in my mind, and it's still yet to be determined, but I thought, and in the voice memo I said, "I think we're gonna have 3 girls and 1 boy." I think this is literally the number and gender of our children. And it's funny because we have 3 girls now. So that 4th one is yet to be determined. If it ends up being a boy, it's going to be the most awesome thing. So that's a testimony that's still waiting to unfold, but very interesting. I still have the domino. I love it. It's really cool, and that was a neat one. And also on that day when I was out shopping with her, everywhere we went, it was like, so we went to like Home Goods and stuff, and it'd say, bride to be, Mr. and Mrs., you're getting married. Like, there was all of these word signs, and everything was about marriage. Everything was about being a bride. And I remember, like, we were both like excited about it. She didn't know to the extent I was excited about it, but I knew 100% all of that was there for me. And we were getting really, really close to this finish line at this point. So it was, I think it was that next week we got together. And then we have our final one the night before the barbecue. So we had already gotten the call that we're supposed to go and that we've been invited to walk through the door, right? So that night I am helping with the babies, and I go to the sanctuary, and I open the door on the, like, there's 2 doors. I open the right side of it, and directly down the aisle on the right hand side of the chairs is Dalton, and they're all blowing their shofars, and he is standing directly at the end of the aisle on the right hand side. And I walk through, and I'm just laughing so hard because I'm like, wow, you know, like, if I'm walking down the aisle to him, like, if that's not a confirmation, I don't know what was. And at this point, the energy is so high. It's so electric. You can feel it in the air. I mean, I am so excited. And the more the Lord was showing me these things, the more it was just like, it was icing on the cake. I mean, it was some pretty exciting stuff. So what I did that night when I went home, and I felt like this was important. So I declared that the next day that we would fall in love. I prayed that my words would be like honey, and that God would give me the right words to say and make him feel good. And they did. And I finally felt that we were all finally on the same page, and I kept thanking God for what he was doing. And a lot of those prayers were recorded, and you know, it's funny because when I said let my words be like honey, after we finally got together, you know, probably a week after that, we were official together. He would always say, I don't know how you always knew what to say, because he was just so like, you know, his version of this is very different than mine. I mean, it's 2 different people, and we had 2 different experiences. And so plus he knew the when and I knew the who, but then he kind of forgot when the when was happening. And so, you know, yeah, so it was like, you know, he's just like, you know, how did you always know what to say? He's like, because if you would have came on too strong, if you would have not, you know, if you would have said the wrong thing, he said, it would have scared me. He said, but you always said just the right thing. You always did the right thing. And I'm like, it was the Lord, because I was praying about that. Like, you know, God gave me the information and the heart posture that I needed to step into that. And I just had this, I knew what he needed. And I remember, and this wasn't a confirmation, but it is in a recording where I had asked the Lord, like, what do I say to him, you know? And the Lord said to me, be yes and amen, because he has heard no enough. And I remembered that, and I took that with me of being yes and amen with him. And so pretty much anything like he said, I'm like, yeah, yes, awesome. You know, it was just like a thing of really always giving him that support of just affirmation and support and love that he needed, and that was going to actually help him be rebuilt, you know, help his spirit be built back up and him to be renewed like he needed to be, and to feel loved again and to feel appreciated and to be seen, you know, part of his healing process. And so that was super interesting. But anyway, I know this is a long video, but so many people have asked for this confirmations video, and I wanted to share those with you. And comment below if you have anything else that you want to know about that or any questions. And I pray everybody is blessed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.